I am fascinated with television ratings. I'm also fascinated with how the mainstream media chooses to cover television ratings. It is no secret at this point that here in America we have an agenda driven media. It wouldn't be such a problem if there was a little bit of balance to it. Wouldn't be a problem if 90% of the mainstream media wasn't pushing the same agenda. When Meg Rapino and her group of entitled victims were fighting their battle for equal pay, I kept seeing the same point repeated over and over throughout the media. It's not fair that the women are paid a fraction of what the men are paid. The women draw higher ratings, damn it! This point was repeated over and over and over. Since we are living in a society that seems to be focused on equity, the courts ruled that it was unequitable or inequitable for the men to be compensated more than the women. So they implemented what they called equal pay, which, by the way, to my knowledge, a system that is designed to give people money that they haven't earned, that kind of system has never worked. It's never a good idea to pay people when they're not producing results. But over the last couple of weeks, the mainstream media has been touting the success of the Women's World Cup. These ratings are amazing! America has fallen in love with beautiful women who hate America. To be completely fair, the media's not totally wrong here. Well, America has not fallen in love with Megan Rapinoe, obviously. Online vendors, they still have plenty of stock if you're looking for posters of Lindsey Horan. Matter of fact, I would be willing to bet that outside of Megan Rapinoe, most people couldn't name another player on this roster, but the numbers do not lie. These women drew big audiences on Fox through the first two games of the World Cup. Just over 5 million for their opener against Vietnam, 6.4 million for their tie against the Netherlands. Depending on the day of the week, usually takes less than 24 hours for ratings to be released for programs being on broadcast television, network television. If something airs during the weekend on a Friday or Saturday, might take an extra day or two for the ratings to be released. Now, the reaction throughout the mainstream media, it was instant when ratings were released for the first two games of the Women's World Cup. Article after article bragging about the success of these unpatriotic women. As you guys know, the media loves getting behind anyone who is unpatriotic. Colin Kaepernick, the Wicked Wig, Joy Reid, Smelly Jameli Hill, the Yentas on The View. We haven't talked about The View in quite a while. I'm kind of starting to miss my boo son hosting. But the media, they also love Meg Rapinoe, Disney, ESPN. The media, they have their favorites, and they all have one thing in common. They hate America. But for some reason, the media hype surrounding the World Cup, it has come to a complete silence this week. Well, that's rather strange. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I am pretty sure the oppressed victims representing America, they played Tuesday morning. Since Wednesday afternoon, I have been waiting for any media outlet besides Sports Media Watch to report on these ratings. Every day the past couple of days, I search for ratings for the World Cup, and every day I come across the same articles, some of which seem to have been republished to make them seem more recent, more current. Yesterday, Forbes, they published an article on World Cup ratings. I thought it was about the game from Tuesday morning. No, Forbes, they were talking about the game from last week. I guess Forbes was a little late to the party. Maybe they were impacted by the ongoing writer's strike, which, to hell with a writer's strike in Hollywood, I think most of us want to see a writer's strike in the mainstream media. For the last couple of days, I have been completely perplexed. Where has all the woke love gone? The media has been silent when it comes to covering the most recent ratings for the World Cup, but it did not take me very long to figure out the reason why. Tuesday morning, the Mexter in her blue hair led her team of activists on the field to compete against Portugal. This game had high stakes. It determined seeding and who would advance to the next round. Megan Rapinoe has been bragging about the power that she possesses to draw people to their television sets. People wait with anticipation to see my hair. Will it be blue? Will it be gray? Will I apply just for men to appear young for another day? Remember Meg's reaction when they drew 6.4 million last week? Well, We been told, everyone. Spoken like a true graduate of Woke U. The shit of all fucks is very fortunate that she has those endorsement deals for income because she damn sure doesn't have the skills to be a greeter at Walmart. But just like the media, Maggie has been silent this week. I wonder why. I wonder if it's because America's greatest representation since the Founding Fathers only managed to draw 1.4 million Tuesday morning. 1.4 million? 1.4 million for the most important game so far in the World Cup? Well, KC, you're not being fair. This game was on at 3 in the morning. Most people are asleep. Yeah, that is true. That's true. I was going to bring that up. But you've also got to remember, many people who support this group of activists, they are awake at 3 in the morning. It's not like they have jobs to go to the next day. As long as those woke welfare checks from John Biden keep showing up on the first of the month, these supporters, they can stay up through the morning to watch their inspiration celebrate failure. Now, I wish I could sit here and tell you that the time slot had nothing to do with these ratings. I wish I could tell you that this unpatriotic group had pissed off so many people with their scowling during the national anthem, so millions of people just stopped showing their support. But I can't sit here and lie to you. I'm not ESPN. I'm not the Washington Post where I twist data and information to fit a certain narrative. Obviously, the 3 a.m. time slot had a detrimental impact on these ratings. However, there are a couple of other things to consider here. Number one, out-of-home viewership and DVR viewing is included in these ratings. Since most people aren't sitting at bars at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, I highly doubt out-of-home viewership had any impact. But DVR viewing does. Now, you would think if people are so interested in this team, they would be willing to watch when they woke up the next morning. But I'm willing to give them a little bit of a pass here since live sports usually don't perform well on DVR. But number two, there have been instances in the past where live sports have performed well during the early morning hours. Back in 2017, the Australian Open aired at 3:30 in the morning. I think it was on ESPN. Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, they drew 1.1 million viewers. 2008, the gold medal game for the Redeem team aired at 2:30 in the morning. Basketball in the Olympics, I find it to be painfully boring. The United States routinely beats their opponents by 20, 30, 40 points. It was no different in 2008. The Redeem team won by an average of 21 points a game. But even with the high probability of a blowout game, the Redeem team drew 6 million viewers on NBC at 2:30 in the morning. But here is the problem going forward for the Rapinos. If they had won instead of tying against Portugal, instead of celebrating failure, their next two games would have aired in prime time here in America. Instead, their next two games, 3:30 and 5 in the morning. What does this mean? Well, for one thing, it means the media will continue their silence. Ratings are going to be a disaster, and the mainstream media, they are going to blame the time slot. So it got me to thinking. Throughout their fight for equal pay, the Rapinos claimed that they were a bigger ratings draw than the men. So I wanted to compare ratings for the Women's World Cup to the real World Cup that was played last November and December. Through 36 games, the Women's World Cup's averaging 672,000 viewers. That is a 36% decline from their last World Cup in 2019. Back in 2019, they were averaging close to 1 million through 36 games. Through 31 games last November and December, the men, they were averaging 3.2 million for games broadcast on Fox. They also pulled 2.6 million for games on Telemundo and Peacock. Now, I'm not a math professor at Woke U, but pretty sure 3.2 million is more than 672,000. But KC, when Meg was talking about ratings, she was talking about America. She wasn't talking about the entire world. Okay. All right, fair enough. So let's compare the American women and the American woman who impersonates a man to the men's soccer team. Through their first 3 games, the professional activists, they have averaged 4.3 million viewers. Now you got to remember, According to the mainstream media, these numbers are record-breaking. Fox is spanking the wanker watching these women fail to win games. Last year, the men, they were averaging close to 12 million. 4 times 3, that is still 12, right? So, by my calculations, the men are drawing 3 times the audience of the women. Someone please explain to me why the women were paid last year for the Men's World Cup. Someone please make that make sense. And if you think the results were the complete opposite for live attendance, you would be thinking wrong. Last month, the mainstream media, they were bragging about the supposed record-breaking attendance at the Women's World Cup. Last I checked, 1.7 million tickets have been sold, which means they are not selling out games. The women, they are averaging around 30,000 a game. Last year, the men, they drew 3.4 million with an average of 53,000 per game. And look. I am not pointing all of this out to shit on the women. The Women's World Cup, it is growing. That's great. But I'm pointing this out to show you the bullshit. The media wants you to believe that the women are equivalent to the men, when the reality is that's just simply not the case. There is a reason the prize money for the Women's World Cup is a fraction to what FIFA gives the men. The women, they receive 150 million, the men 440 million. The last place men's team earned twice the amount of the eventual winner of the Women's World Cup. Well, that is just inequitable. I thought FIFA was dedicated to equity. No, FIFA is dedicated to making money. Publicly, they might pretend to be dedicated to equity, but the reality is the women are paid a fraction of what the men are paid because the women, they are drawing a fraction of the revenue. Over the last few weeks, there has been a lot of hype here in America surrounding the World Cup. Going forward, I think we are going to see all this hype subside. Hell, it's already beginning to die down now. One reason for that? This group has been disappointing. And I'm not even talking about the controversy with the national anthem or the controversy with Carly Lloyd. This group has been disappointing on the field. Heading into the World Cup, the activists, they were one of the favorites to win it. And they can't even win a game against a quality opponent. That tie the other night against Portugal, that was the beginning of the end, which is why Carly Lloyd was 100% right when she criticized this group for celebrating failure. These women are about to fall out of the mainstream news cycle here in America. When your games are being broadcast at 3 o'clock in the morning, no one is watching. And when people aren't watching, they're not invested. And when they're not invested, they're not paying attention. And when people aren't paying attention, the media will start to focus on something different. At the end of the day, the media, they are in the business of making money. Just like FIFA, the media, they will pretend to be all about equity until the clicks stop coming in. This is a nightmare scenario for Fox. With the men, it doesn't really matter who's playing. Hell, Brazil, Serbia, they drew 6.2 million on Fox on Thanksgiving Day. A day that is always dominated here in America by the NFL. The game actually peaked with 13.5 million viewers. But with the women, Americans are only watching if America is involved. And clearly, they are not watching with America involved at 3 o'clock in the morning. I was unable to find a World Cup game that pulled over 1 million viewers that didn't involve the U.S. women's team, which is why they are averaging 672,000 while the men were pulling over 3 million. And there's an even bigger problem going forward for Fox. It seems like the rest of the world has caught up to the skills of the American women. There has been this ongoing theory that the only reason the Rapinos have appeared so dominant in the past is because women throughout the rest of the world that they're competing with, they are living in oppressive countries. I'm talking about real oppression, not the fake oppression they complain about here in America. As we have seen throughout this World Cup, this group of Rapinos, they are not nearly as dominant as they've appeared to be in the past, meaning ratings for future Women's World Cups could be worse than they are today. Like I said earlier, overall ratings down 36% compared to 2019. When it comes to women's soccer, people in America only care about America. But give me your thoughts. Do you agree the 3 a.m. time slot the other day is the reason for the low ratings? Or Do you think people are starting to refuse to support this group of women? Is this the beginning of the end for these so called record ratings? With the next two games airing while the rest of us are asleep, will the ratings continue to be low? And will the media keep choosing to ignore them? You let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.